Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you guys are new here. So for today's video, I'm gonna do something that I have never done here on my channel before, and that's a ranking video. I will be ranking all of my Glamlite palettes from my least favorite to my absolute favorite. So you guys wanna see what those are, what the swatches are, what every single palette is, well then definitely keep watching. Okay guys, so this video is definitely a new video to my channel. You guys have been asking me for a very long time now to do a ranking video, whether it's like Glamlite or ColourPop or any brand that I have. You guys have always asked me to do a ranking video, and I thought, why not go with one of my favorite brands of all time, Glamlite Cosmetics. Now, I only own 28 palettes. I believe there are 30 palettes in total. I'm missing the Miracle palette and this palette right here. I don't know the name of this one. I am missing those two. I think there might be one more I could be missing, but I do have a majority of the Glamlite palettes. So I'm actually going to spin the camera around. I'm going to have you guys like facing my desk, and we're going to go over each palette. I'm going to talk to you guys about why it's my least favorite to why it's my absolute favorite. Mind you, I do love every single Glamlite palette. I've been in love with Glamlite for years now, so even if it's on my least favorite, that does not mean that it's not a good palette. It just means that I prefer other palettes of theirs over that one. Also, if you guys notice my eye, the reason why I'm not doing a makeup video today, do you guys see that right there? Your girl is just falling apart, I swear to God. So one, I really hurt my finger and I slammed it in a car door when I was trying to get Starbies. Then I know y'all see the eye right there, and I can't avoid it. I was going to do a full face of a brand today, but I was like, you know what, my eye's still kind of bothering me, so I'm not going to like show my bloody eye on camera, but here we are. But I was actually playing in the dog field with my two dogs and with Corey, and we like to throw the ball back and forth. Well, I went to go answer a DM, and when I did, I wasn't paying attention. Corey kicked the ball, and it literally came and hit me straight in the eye. I mean, like literally, I dropped my phone and I screamed because I just wasn't expecting the pain of it. I'm actually really bruised, right? So you guys can kind of see right here. I tried covering it up with a lot of makeup. I'm really bruised right here and definitely right here, but my eye definitely got scratched. So that's where you guys will see like the bloody eye. And you guys will probably see it later on this week as well, because I do have a video coming out soon, like a review. So you guys will see that like bloody eye up close. So I just want to give you guys a heads up as to what's going on. I'm just falling apart. That's what's happening. We are falling apart. Which is fine. It is what it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and spin you guys around. We're gonna go over every single palette. If you guys do wish to use my code on any of these palettes, you guys can use code Allie D, which will save you guys 15% off your purchase. And I'm gonna manifest it now. You guys know how much I love Glamlite. It is one of my favorite brands out there, and it would be a dream. I mean, like a little dream to collaborate with them. And I'm gonna manifest it that one day I get a chance to do that. So with that said, guys, let's spin the camera around. Let's zoom in on these palettes. Let's talk about my least favorite to my absolute favorite Glamlite palette. Okay, so starting with palette number 28, we have the Glamlite Pizza palette. First off, I really do love the packaging of this palette. It's so unique. It definitely stands out. I mean, like how often do you see brands go all out just for a unicorn and an outside packaging? Like I truly do love the packaging. But when you open the palette up, you do have the Glamlite Pizza palette. It has 18 beautiful shadows in here, but these are shadows that I just generally don't gravitate to. So here's the palette. Now there's nothing wrong with this palette. It's just like, look at the actual like design of it. It just doesn't stand out. Like I think this is one of the older palettes for Glamlite. I believe they might have came out with this before they did the burger palette. So I think they really learned a lot about how to do concept and designs, and it just was very bland looking. Definitely wasn't my favorite looking palette at all. There was not that many shimmers in here, and the shimmers that are in here are really not that overwhelming. And I mean, I'm grateful that I have it. It just really didn't stand out to me, and doesn't really look like a pizza palette itself, right? I mean, like, look at it. I'm gonna zoom you guys out just a second so you guys can see a little more. It just really doesn't like stand out to me as like a really beautiful palette. Like I was just kind of like, about it. But for me, I have to have everything because I'm a hoarder like that. So I like to have the entire collection. So I only used this palette like one time, but I wasn't really a fan. And yeah, so this marks palette number 28. This is palette number 27, and this is the Glamlite Pizza Slice palette. I actually got this in a mystery box, and this is the first Glamlite palette I have ever owned. My very first one. again, it's okay. So this is the Meat Lovers palette. On the inside, it's supposed to represent like meat lovers, and I just feel like it really didn't grasp the concept of it personally. And I remember I did a video on this, and this is the first time I ever got to try any Glamlite's formula, and I did fall in love with the brand based upon this particular palette and the veggie palette. But I just wasn't as captivated with this as much as I was the other ones. So it is why it's number 27. I really don't pick it up at all, but I like to have it in my collection because it does hold special memories, because this is the first time I was ever introduced to Glamlite palette was the Meat Lover palette. Followed by number 26, which is the Veggie Lover palette right here. Again, this is part of the mystery box that I did my very first time doing a video for Glamlite. And it just, I don't know, like, do you guys see how that shade has been broken apart? I've been having troubles with this shade ever since I got the palette. It just wants to crumble, it wants to break apart. I really don't know what that's about, but it just wasn't my favorite palette. Like, I just feel like they could have done a lot better job at a color scheme, and I feel like if they were to redo this palette, they would do a phenomenal job. But do you see how just even like the concept on the inside just looks better than the original pizza palette? So even though I don't ever play with this palette, again, it's something I'm going to hold on to because I really do love the memories that I have associated with this. It just sucks that every time I open up this palette, this shade right here wants to keep crumbling into the other shades. Then we have palette number 25. This is the Alondra Dusky palette. Now, this was actually gifted to me by a subscriber because I know that I don't have this in my collection. And this is one of the first few palettes that came out with Glamlite. Now, there is the Miracle palette and that other palette I was talking to you guys about. The other palette, I just don't know the name of it, that came out with Glamlite. And I think, like I said, there might be one more, but this is one of the original palettes that came out with Glamlite before they started doing concepts like food and stuff like that. So it is a really beautiful palette. I do love the velvet feel. It's just one of those palettes that I just typically don't gravitate to when it comes to Glamlite, only because I'm not the biggest fan of the color scheme itself. But again, the shimmers perform beautifully. Okay, so here we have palette number 24, and this is the Red Velvet palette. So many of you guys thought that this was my favorite palette with Glamlite, and it's not. Like, it's definitely not my favorite palette. Not because of the formula, but because of the actual, like, concept itself. When you think of Red Velvet, you think of white and red. And when you open this up, it doesn't necessarily scream red velvet to me. Like, you just think there'd be a lot more deeper reds in here, different shimmers, like a really beautiful white shimmer. But I don't know, when I saw this and I played with it, I just was like, oh, okay. It just didn't hit the theme of Red Velvet Cupcake like their other palettes do when it comes to theming. It's still a beautiful palette. I still do love the shimmers in here, but again, this is just a palette that I don't pick up that often because of the fact that, I don't know, I'm not the biggest fan of reds. You guys know I'm not the biggest fan of reds, so it's probably why I also don't gravitate to this palette as often as I do other palettes. But I will say that I really do love the packaging on this one. I love the fact that it comes in like this cute little oven, super cute. Then we have palette number 23. This is the Pie palette, and this came out in a, I believe it was a Christmas special box. You guys couldn't necessarily buy this by itself. You had to buy the box, and this is a really cute concept. I really do like the concept that they did with this. You guys know I do love when Glamlite does like their food theme. The packaging is super cute, and when you open it up, the shadows themselves are really pretty, but this is just a color scheme that I typically just don't gravitate to. You guys know I'm not really into these sort of colors. Like, I do love my neutrals. I've been falling in love with the neutrals a lot, but for some reason this one just doesn't grab me as much as the other ones do. Now, this shade Peach was truly unbelievably beautiful. Like, if you guys want to take a look at this, like, this was such a beautiful shade. Like, I love the shimmers on this, but I don't know, I just wasn't as into this palette as I have been like their other palettes. So this is the Pie palette. You guys can see that the shimmers perform beautifully. It's a pretty palette, just not one that I'm gonna gravitate to as often compared to their other palettes. I believe this is number 22. If I'm off, I do apologize. I'm just trying to go off of like what I'm remembering. So this is the Taco palette, and I had a lot of fun when I reviewed this palette. It was so much fun for me. But when you actually look at the concept itself and like the shimmer, the colors on the inside, I don't know. I'm just not as overwhelmed with this color scheme as I was their other palettes. It's beautiful. I really do love the shades Salsa Verde and Cilantro. These are really beautiful shades. I had a lot of fun when I played with this palette because of the fact I was able to grab some tacos and chips and salsa, and I had like a really fun time at making a video with this. But again, these are just a color scheme that I'm just not as into anymore. So it's beautiful. I'm very glad I have it, but I just feel like with this, I don't know. When I look at it, I don't get excited like I used to when I look at it, but yeah. Then we have the Cherry palette right here. Now, the reason why this is number 21 is just because, like I said earlier, I'm not that into reds. Like, It is a beautiful palette. I will definitely give it that. And you can really get those beautiful deep reds and burgundies. But for someone like me who really doesn't gravitate to a lot of reds, I just really don't have too much of a use out of this like I would other palettes from them, just because I don't really use reds. I find reds to be very intimidating. They're really hard to work with and they stain like crazy. So it's why I typically don't grab this palette. I'm very glad that I have it. I had a lot of fun when I did the video for them, but I don't know, just not my color scheme personally. Next we have number 20, and this is the Special Dark palette. Now this is a recent launch. They just launched the Hershey's collection, and again, this is a really beautiful palette. I got to go to LA to experience the launch of this event, but I don't know, like when you look at the colors, it's a beautiful purple palette, but they're just shimmers. They're just colors, again, that I don't really gravitate to that often. And I will say the shimmers are really beautiful. These are really beautiful purple shades, but I like their other wine palette a little bit more than I like this one. And I will find myself picking up that palette more than I will this one. Very, very cute concept. I did enjoy this launch, and I really did enjoy having fun using this palette, and I created my eye look, but this is just a palette I typically wouldn't go gravitate to all on its own. It'd be something that I use to mix with other palettes. Number 19, we do have the Blue Raspberry palette. And again, this palette just didn't excite me as much as their other ones did. I had a lot of fun when I did my video. I will say that the shades on the inside are beautiful. Like, this is a very beautiful, beautiful palette. And it kind of reminds me of the Jeffree Star Cosmetics Blue Blood palette. But I don't know. I just will probably end up picking up other palettes over this one. I typically don't wear a lot of blues. And if I do, I don't wear blues a lot by themselves. I tend to mix and match. It's still a very, very, very gorgeous palette. Like, these shimmers right here are just to die for. Like, truly, they are beautiful. Like, I had so much fun when I did this review, did this palette. Like, the shimmers just like speak for themselves. It's such a beautiful quality palette, but again, I just don't go for straight blues that often. Next we do have I think this is number 19 or number 18. Again, I apologize if I'm wrong, but here we have the Lava Cake palette. And again, this was a beautiful palette, but my favorite shade in this palette is the shade right here. This is such a beautiful pink. Like, I could not get over how gorgeous this pink is. It has like a nice duochrome shift to it, but that's kind of like the only shade I really go for when it comes to this palette. Like, these are my two go-to shades in this palette. So again, I don't really find myself reaching for this palette as I do their other ones. I feel like other ones have a bit more brighter pinks, a little bit more colors I would gravitate to. It's a very, very gorgeous palette, but if I'm normally going to go in just for this shade in particular, there's really no reason for me to put it like higher up on my list when I just really am obsessed with this shade overall. And this shade right here is a beautiful, beautiful pink. But I don't know, I prefer some of their other palettes over this one, but again, the concept of this is so damn cute. All right, next, I think this is number 17 or 18, but we have the Glamlite Burger palette. Now, I had the absolute best time reviewing this palette, but I don't know, it used to be my favorite, but I think as they released more stuff, I found other palettes to be more of my favorite. So I do really love this palette, and this is where it starts to get really hard for me to narrow down like what's my least favorite to my top favorite, because this palette right here like set the bar high for me. Like, this palette was like the hugest rage. I remember like Jeffree Star, Nikki Tutorials, Robert E. Christie, like all reviewed this palette. It's what sold me to try out Glamlite to begin with. I got the mystery box and I bought this at the same time because I really wanted to try this brand, and I had so much fun in this video. So first off, again, the packaging is just phenomenal. They did a wonderful job with the unicarton, and then when you open it up, you're like, come on, it looks like a burger. Like, look at how cool this concept is, right? Super freaking cool. I loved it. And then when you open the palette on the inside, it does have very, very, very beautiful colors. Like, I really do enjoy the color scheme. I really do enjoy the color scheme of this palette, but the only thing I've noticed with this palette is I feel like over time, these grease stains appeared. I don't know what it's about. I don't know if it was the concept of the palette or it's just the palette itself, but I just noticed that over time these kind of started to get a little bit more oily looking. It is what it is. Like, the shadows are still great to use. There's nothing wrong with them. I just noticed that oil started to seep through. And I don't know, when I started playing with their other palettes, I found that this was not as appealing to me as their other palettes are. This still set the bar high. This is what made me really, really, really fall in love with Glamlite. I think the colors in here are beautiful. You can make some beautiful colors. You can make some beautiful eye looks with these. Very gorgeous concept, and this is what made it very hard for me to start to narrow things down down because this palette is what really sold me. And yeah, so from this point on, it gets really hard for me to like narrow down my favorite to my least favorite to my favorite, because they start to get really good, and you guys know how much I love color. But yeah, this I think will be number 17. Alrighty, next we have the Glamlite Burger Slider Palette. And I remember I actually bought this myself, but then they actually sent me one in PR. And I was so like, what? You guys are sending me this in PR? So I actually did a giveaway of that because I didn't need to have two of the same palette. So I will always have a special place in my heart for this particular palette because of the fact that it was my first one ever getting in PR. But when you look at it itself, again, the concept of this is super cute. It came with this. It came with French fry lashes, and I believe a gloss. It was like $25 for the collection. Amazing. Again, I love the concept of what they do. The packaging is just phenomenal. They put a lot of thought into this. And then when you open it up, you do have the cute little burger, and then you have the beautiful color scheme right here. Now this palette right here, I had a lot of fun with, but it was a little bit harder for me to make a color. It was a little bit harder for me to make a really beautiful eye look, just because the colors kind of contradict each other just a little bit. Like, it's a little bit harder. I'd have to kind of stick to this region or maybe like this region. But like, these two don't necessarily go together. You can make them work together, but they're such contrasting colors. It's a little harder to do. You can try to make these work. I really had to play with this palette to get it to be really pretty. I don't even remember what eye look I came up with, but I do know I had a lot of fun with this palette. And it's still something that I hold on dear to my heart because it has such a soft spot for me, because like I said, it was one of the first PRs I ever got from Glamlite was this palette. All right, next we do have the Glamlite Street Taco Palette. Now this palette is super cute. But this is probably one of the only palettes with Glamlite. They have really, really, really tiny shades in here. Like, normally all their other pan sizes are a lot bigger, but I really did love this shade Carnitas. Like, this is a beautiful, beautiful green. And the shade Guacamole. Guacamole. Like, this is such a beautiful shade. I had a lot of fun when I used this palette. These shades are really beautiful. But again, I just don't gravitate to this palette that much like I used to. I prefer other ones in their collection. The color schemes are really beautiful. I do enjoy this palette. I feel like they really did a good job at captivating the taco theme. And this was just a fun palette for me to review. I did have a lot of fun with this one. All right, next we have the Glazed Donut. Again, this is where it gets really hard for me to narrow down, because if you guys look at this palette itself, like, look at the color scheme. The color scheme of this palette is just so freaking beautiful, and this is 100% up my alley when it comes to colors. You guys know that I love bright, bold, beautiful colors. I also love pastel shades, so this is like that perfect palette. I remember I was working at Disney when this launched, and I ran to the bathroom to make sure I got my hands on it because I did not want to miss this. But like, look at the shade right here. I was obsessed with like this beautiful shade. Oh, that was such a gorgeous shade to play with. I loved the blues and the purples. Like, they did such a good job like captivating the shadows and like complementing one another. Like, I love that they did a shimmer and like the matching matte shade to go with it. Like, that was such an amazing concept of that. I really enjoyed playing with this palette, and I will definitely hold a soft spot for this, but it just doesn't captivate me as much as the other ones do. So that's why it's a little bit lower on the list. This is still a beautiful palette nonetheless. All right, next we have the Margarita collection. Now, this is from their After Hour collection, and I had so much fun in that video. But when I look at the Margarita palette itself, first off, the packaging was freaking amazing. I love the design of it. But when you actually look at the palette, it is a beautiful, beautiful summer palette, right? Absolutely beautiful. This is right up my alley when it comes to colors. You guys know how much I love colors like this. I just feel that this one didn't make as much sense as the other ones. And when I did all 4 eye looks, I preferred the other ones in this collection over this one. And that is shocking to me because you guys know how much I do love my colors. So I was kind of shocked that I picked the other ones, but that doesn't take away the quality of this. This is still a beautiful palette. If you guys are looking for a great summer palette or spring palette, this is the one to go for. You guys literally can get so many good uses out of this. You can make so many pastel looks like out of this, beautiful summery vibe looks out of this. Like, this is your perfect spring and summer palette, hands down. But yeah, it's now getting like really hard to narrow it down because I can use this in so many different ways. And like, just look at those shimmers. Like, those shimmers are just, they're so good. Alrighty, next we do have the Chocolate Donut palette. Again, this came in like a dessert foodie box, and this palette was so much fun to play with. This is a beautiful neutral palette. If you guys are looking for something neutral, this is a palette that I'd highly recommend. Honestly, I don't know if this palette is still available for purchase, if I'm going to be completely real with you guys, but this palette I had so much fun with. You guys can clearly tell I love that shade White Chocolate. Like, this is a beautiful, beautiful dual chrome shift. Like, look at that shade right there. Truly stunning. I loved the chocolate sprinkles. Like, I can tell what I love more based upon how much I've dug into it. But, like, their shimmers are such top-notch shimmers. And this was, like, the perfect, like, neutral palette. Perfect neutral palette. Like, these all complement each other. These all complement each other so well. And I just had a lot of fun when I reviewed this palette. That shade, Sweet Filling, beautiful, beautiful shade. So this is where it starts to get really hard because, again, I've really gotten into neutrals. If I can just get that shade by itself, I'd be so happy. But this is a beautiful palette. I just don't know if it's available for purchase anymore. I think this might have been just a limited edition. And I just realized I'm breaking it. Oh my God, no. I'm breaking that off right there. Do you guys see that? I'm breaking that off. No. I played with this palette too much. I'm breaking it off. That sucks. Alrighty, next we have the Milk Chocolate with Almonds palette, and this palette is beautiful. This is a beautiful, beautiful palette. Again, this is part of the newest collection that just came out with Glamlite. This is the Hershey Kisses collection, and I had such a fun time playing with this palette. Like, the shimmers truly are incredible. They're very bright, bold, and vibrant. I feel like they did a wonderful job at captivating the color of Hershey Kisses. I just have it ranked a little bit lower just because I do prefer color over neutral, but this is a stunning, stunning palette. Next, I do have the Cookies and Cream palette. Again, this was hard for me because I love this collection so much, and I love the eye look that I created with this. But I just feel like I don't really go for as many blues as I do other colors. Like, blues are very fun. They can be very staining. They really can be. And you have to make sure that you use them properly. Otherwise, you would look like a hot mess with like bright blue eyeshadow with like red lips, you know. But this is a beautiful palette. There's nothing wrong with it. I just feel like I prefer their other palettes just a little bit more just because it is a solid blue, and I don't really play with solid blues by themselves. Next, we do have the Milk Chocolate palette. This palette was so much fun to play with. I love this palette so much. Again, this is a beautiful, neutral, everyday palette. If you guys want to get something like the Chocolate Donut, they don't have that available, I highly recommend checking out this palette because you can make so many beautiful looks out of this. This is like a perfect like date night palette. Like, these shimmers are just to die for. Again, they do such a good job with their shimmers and captivating the essence of the collection. This was so much fun to play with. Alrighty, next we do have the Wine palette. This palette is beautiful. If you're looking for a beautiful purple palette, look no further because this will captivate. This will capture everything you need in a purple palette. Now, I don't use purples as often just because purples, again, are intimidating to me, just like reds, because a little can go a long way. You can mess it up really easily, and they do have staining. Like, they do have staining issues. Like, a lot of purples do tend to stain because of how they're formulated. But this is a beautiful palette. I feel like this is exactly what everybody's looking for when it comes to a purple palette. I just personally don't gravitate to it as much as the other ones because it is all purple, and I don't use purples that often. If I do, it is just to mix and match, never to wear by itself personally. But do you guys not see how gorgeous this palette is? Like, this palette was just so freaking beautiful. Next, we do the Chocolate Martini palette. Now, this palette right here, I was shocked by how much I love this palette. I actually included this palette in my Christmas giveaway because of how much I love this palette. You guys know that I'm not into neutrals that often, but look at this palette. Like, look at how gorgeous this is. This can be a beautiful date night palette as well as a beautiful like smoky eye and neutral palette. Like, these shimmers, oh my God, these shimmers are just to die for. Like, I am obsessed with how gorgeous these shimmers were when I played with them. And they mix and match with one of my favorite palettes with Glamlite. So it's why like I have to like include it in my top because the fact that these are just so pretty. Like, oh my God, like look at these shades. These shades are just truly remarkable. Like, do you guys see? these shimmer shades, like they just speak for themselves with how good the quality is. I love the shade Irish Cream and the shade All Night. Like this is a beautiful like purpley mauve. It's like a beautiful like purple brown, and it's so fun to play with. And these darker brown shades complement each other with the light shades so beautifully. Like I freaking love this palette so much, and I feel like this is probably Glamlite's best neutral palette, hands down. Alrighty, narrowing it down to the top 6. Coming in at number 6, we do have the Paint palette. Guys, when I first did this palette review, oh, it holds such a special place in my heart because of how horrible, I mean like atrociously horrible my eye look was. Like holy shit, I did not know how to blend. Like I still do now, let's be realistic. But at the end of the day, I really did such a piss poor job at, you know, making this palette look really pretty. I hated my eye look and I wanted to recreate it later on, which I did. But besides that, you guys got to see my love for Bob Ross. You guys know how much I love Bob Ross so much, and I just felt like when I used this palette, I felt like a pro, like a painter. So first off, look at how cute the packaging is. Now, there is a brush that is included in this kit. So you do get like a little paintbrush right here. Like how adorable is that? And then you have the physical palette. Now this palette was just a cool concept design. Like just look at this. Like they did such a really wonderful job of making you feel like you're a painter. Like I had so much fun with this palette. It's a beautiful rainbow palette. They made it so easy by just labeling the shades what it is: red, yellow, orange, burgundy, brown, black, light green, gold, green, royal blue. Like I love how they named it, and it's just so easy to work with. The shadows complemented each other beautifully. They worked really well together, and this palette was just so much fun, and it just really brings out like your inner artist. And I feel like Glamlite really captivated my heart and soul with this palette, and I felt so bad when they watched my review, because they did, and they were just so sweet. They're like, oh my god, we love the look that you did, thank you so much. And I'm like, no fucking way you guys like that look, because that look was just unbelievably horrible. Like, oh, I hate it so bad. But I had the best time with it. So this palette will always hold a special place in my heart, because I just had the best time in that video. And I tried to go out of my comfort zone and do rainbow look, and I failed miserably, but I had the best time doing it. So this is my favorite. This is the number 6 Glamlite paint palette. Oh, coming in at number 5, we had the Paint Pro palette, which is a smaller version of that paint palette. And when I got this palette, I decided to recreate that look, but in a more sophisticated manner. I tried to redo my look. So here we have the Paint Pro palette, and see, this is what I'm talking about. Some of their shades, I don't know why, some of them kind of leak oil. I don't know what that is, but they're still beautiful. Like this shade Titanium White, even though it's like leaking oil, oh my god, this is such a beautiful like duochrome shift. Do you guys see that? It goes from like pink to purple, pink, green, purple. Like it is a beautiful, beautiful duochrome shade. I love this shade so much. I had the best time with that shade. And I also love the shade Chameleon Yellow. Like, oh my god, this was such a stunning shade to work with. Like these shades are truly unbelievably beautiful. Like look at that shift right there. So even though like it does like have a little bit of like staining now over time, I could give 2 shits. I'm still gonna use it. It's such a pretty shade, and it's not harmful at all. Just things happen. But anyway, why I love this palette so much is because this is the pastel version of the pink palette. And so you can really, really do some beautiful, colorful looks with this palette and mix it very well with the paint palette. Like these two complement each other so damn well. It is such a beautiful palette. You guys know how much I love my pastel shades. So this I fell in love with. And when I did my video, I recreated that video where I did my horrible eye look with this palette, and I tried to do a better job. And I feel like I did a really good job in that video compared to the first time around. And I feel like if I were to do it now, I'd probably do a better job. But this palette was so much fun. I loved it so much. I love that it looks just like I love that it looks just like the other one, and just the shades of this are truly, truly stunning. Oh, coming in at number 4, we do have the Cake palette. Now this is the first time that Glamlite allowed you to buy a PR package. So this was their PR kit, which it really wasn't PR, but like it's like what the PR would have came in. And I just thought it was so cool. It was so innovative. This is the first time I did something like this, and I absolutely love the packaging. I'll never forget being at work when this launched, and one of my coworkers, I was a food runner that day, walked out. Like literally walked out on the job, quit on the spot, and I was like, you bitch, much because I had to get my hands on this palette, and she walked out like literally 30 minutes before this launched, and I told my job, I don't give a flying fuck. I'm running to the bathroom and I'm running to the bathroom and I'm buying this palette. I don't care how long it takes. Sorry. They were so mad at me, but I don't care. I had to get my hands on this palette. Now, I love this palette. First off, the concept of it is just so freaking cute. And then when you open it up, like just look at the color scheme. Like the color scheme on this is beautiful. This is a beautiful like rainbow looking palette. The shades complement each other so well. I had the best time. My favorite shade was shade Guava. That was my favorite shade that I dug into so much. And I just really loved the vibe of this palette. Like this palette was just my heart and soul. I had way too much fun with this. I played with this so much off camera, and I will never forget how much I love this palette. Like it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful colorful palette, which I don't know if this is still available personally. Let me check on the website because I think some palettes that they used to have are no longer available. Yes, you guys can actually still get that palette. It is available right now for $40, but if you guys use my code, you'll save 15%. And there's also a dessert lover, so you guys can get the cake palette, the donut palette, a highlighter, and a brush right there as well. So that's actually really nice that they have that available. And they still have the glam donut, the pink palettes right here. And they do have the chocolate donut, okay, and the pie. Alrighty, so they still do have some of these available. That makes me so happy you guys can get your hands on them. Oh, except for the burger one. Sold out. But they still do have majority of the palettes I'm talking about available to order. So that makes me so happy. Yay! Like that's a really cool deal right there. That's a really cool deal. Anyway, so this is palette number 4, top 4. And this is where it got really, really hard to narrow it down because I was in a big debate between this one and number 3. But number 3 just, it took the show. It had to. So number 3, we have number 3, which is the ice cream palette. Now this collection right here, Glamlite, was so sweet and got me the entire thing in PR, and I'm extremely grateful that they bought this entire thing for me in PR. So here we do have the ice cream palette, and guys, when I tell you this palette is gorgeous, I'm not kidding. Like just ooh, like look at this palette. This palette is every pastel's lover's dream. My God, this palette is truly undeniably gorgeous. Like I am obsessed with this palette. Like these bottom row is what made me fall in love with this palette. Now this one right here, it is beautiful. I just would love the beautiful pastels just a little bit more just because they're so fun to work with. The shimmers complement them beautifully. They did a great job at matching them like that. Like I loved the concept of this. You can mix and match. You can go from light to dark, and they just did such a wonderful job with this collection. I could not get over how gorgeous this was. And the best part is that they released this during the summertime, so this was a perfect time for them to release it. And it's just such a fun palette, very fun colors, beautiful. Again, it's a beautiful summer palette, beautiful spring palette. Again, if you love those pastel shades, they lay down beautiful. Like I love the shade pistachio. I had so much fun when I played with this shade. I also love the mint chocolate, of course. How could I not love this shade right here? And like the French vanilla, again, beautiful shade. Oh, the cookie dough one, I had so much fun. Like these shades are just so freaking beautiful. I had the best time with this palette. So this palette was really hard to rank because of how much I love this palette. All right, guys, we're coming into the last 2, and this was so hard for me to narrow it down. But the reason why I picked it the way I did, I'll explain in just a minute. But coming in at number 2, we have the Dirty Martini palette. Guys, this is such a beautiful green eyeshadow palette. You guys know how much I love my greens so much. I can wear green eyeshadow every single day and be completely happy, be completely content. This palette, oh my God, it is a green lover's dream. I loved every single shade in here. The shade like High Class, my God. And this shade right here, the Vocatini, oh my gosh. Oh, and On the Rocks. You guys don't know how hard it was for me to create an eye look with this because I took everything I had not to play with like every single shade. Like this shade right here, I cannot get over how unbelievably gorgeous that shade was. Like truly, this palette was my absolute perfect green eyeshadow palette. There's not one shade in here that I don't love. This palette is truly beautiful. They really captivate the essence of a beautiful green eyeshadow palette. Dirty Martini, it is just, I can stare at it all day. I love this palette, and whenever I go to do like a green eye look, this is a palette I definitely will pick up because this palette is just truly everything. It's unbelievably gorgeous, but it came in number 2 because there's just one palette that just hit home just a little bit more. And you guys obviously know what that one is, but I just have to give this one its moment because if you guys are any sort of green eyeshadow lover, I'm telling you, this palette is absolutely worth it. You will not regret it. It is just, God, it's amazing. Coming in at number 1, we have the Michaela palette. And honest to God, the reason why this became number 1 is not because of Michaela. Like, love her to death, but this has nothing to do with her. The reason why this came at number 1 is because of the physical color scheme. First off, I will say that this packaging alone it's beautiful. Like, you can't deny how beautiful this palette is. Like, right? I love the little beads right there. But the reason why this became number 1 for me is because of the color scheme. I just can't get enough with how beautiful this palette is. I just loved it so much. Like, the greens and the purples, like the greens eyeshadows in here are just some beautiful shades. Like, I love the look that I created because I typically used to mess up doing green and purple together, but when I did this eye look, I was able to mix purple and green together in a way that I never thought was possible. So I love the fact that she did put a lot of neutral shades in here, so you can create beautiful neutral looks with here. You could do beautiful pops of colors, you could do beautiful greens, but like the shade right here, this is Bonehead and Stunning. The shade Stunning, it is what it is. It's stunning. Like, that is stunning. And I love the shade Loop. Like, this is a beautiful green to me. And Handy, like, oh my God, she did such a wonderful job with these shades and coming up with the colors that I love this palette so much. I can't help it. It kind of hits everything I wanted to hit. It kind of has all the colors I'm looking for, and I'm trying to do a really fun look with this. And it's a great palette to mix and match. Like, the shade Freetown was so pretty. Audrey was so pretty. Frisky, oh my God, this was so much fun to play with. So was Pot 2. And I also love the shade. Let me see if I can mix this without mixing it too much. I kind of mixed it. That shade right there, Nas, and then Porridge. Like, these are just such beautiful. Oh yeah, Glow Up. Oh, I love the shade Glow Up. Glow Up was such a beautiful shade for me. Like, these are just truly stunning. And I kind of messed up this shade right here. I hope I can fix that. Hold on. Like, even like this gray shade, it's like kind of like a duochrome shade. Like, it is just such a beautiful palette. You can do so many eye looks with this, and it's no wonder why it's sold out as much as it did. Besides it being Michaela's, like, it's just a beautiful overall aesthetically pleasing palette. They did such a great job with this. They put so much shimmers in here, which I love their shimmer formula, and I was just really, really impressed with this palette. I was blown away with the quality of it, the beauty of it, and I'm sorry, I just couldn't help but just stare at this going, this is a beautiful palette. It's a beautiful palette, and it mixes well with so many other Glamlite palettes. So that's why it's my number 1 favorite Glamlite palette, because I will end up picking up this palette more than anything else because you could do so much with this. This is a very, very, very versatile palette. Okay guys, so that is the ranking of all my Glamlite palettes. At the end of the day, I love Glamlite so much, and I love every single one of these palettes for different reasons, but if I had to narrow it down between my least favorite to my top favorite, that is what I did for you guys today. But at the end of the day, these are still amazing quality palettes. I know how much I love Glamlite, and one day I will work with them. But I'm sorry I wasn't able to include a few of the other ones that the Glamlite did release, because those were like the really, really early Glamlite palettes, and I didn't know Glamlite at the time. I wasn't introduced to them until I saw the pizza palette, and then I kind of went from there. So yeah, I really hope you guys liked this style video. This was actually so much fun for me. I've never like filmed my videos. I never filmed like I never filmed my channel like this before. Like, I never had the camera over here filming on my desk, so that was actually really cool for me. And I had a lot of palettes to go through. If you guys want me to do ColourPop, let me know next, because I think I have way more ColourPop palettes, and that video will definitely take some time to film because I have a lot of Glamlite palettes. I could also do like all my influencer ones, my like Milk Cosmetics. Like, I have so many brands that I just love to collect. So I'd love to do more ranking videos for you guys. Hopefully you guys like them. Sorry I couldn't do like a makeup video today. It's because, you know, my eyes messed up. But yeah, this was actually a lot of fun for me. I hope you guys enjoyed all this stuff. If you guys do want to shop anything on Glamlite's website, don't forget to use my code AllieD, which will save you guys 15% off. But yeah, this was fun. Let me know what Glamlite palette's your favorite down below. So with that said, guys, that is it for today's video, guys. Hope you guys like this video. If you do, please make sure you guys give this video a cheeky thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you guys have not already, because I do post 4 to 5 videos a week. Make sure you guys head over to my other channels, R for the Life, where you guys get to see my cool, wonderful adventures, my amazing husband, Corey. And as always, a huge thank you goes to all these beautiful, wonderful Patreon members you guys see right here. Thank you guys so much for everything. And and to my subscribers and viewers, thank you guys so much for being here. Whether you guys like this video, you guys thumbs down this video, you guys subscribed, you guys did not subscribe, either way, just thank you guys so much for being here. I love and appreciate each and every single one of you. So with that said, guys, I love you, and I'll see you guys very next video. Bye. Hey guys, what's up? No. So why not just sit back? So no, I will be ranking all of my I saw this, and when I got it and I played with it, I just wasn't overwhelmed with Jeffree Star Cosmetics Blue Blood palette. It kind of reminds me of the Jeffree Star Cosmetics Blue Blood. Now, how to do a thumbnail, because this shall be fun. I'm going to leave this recording because I have a feeling I'm not going to be able to hold all these palettes. I'm going to try. Can't say I'm going to succeed. I don't think I could do this. Oh God. This is unbelievably heavy. All right, Dusk, I need you to help support me for a second. I have to exclude some palettes because there's just no damn way I can hold every single one. So I'll just put like little inserts. Okay, I can't. Oh.